Your life is yours to create.
Yeah, maybe I only exist in your mind. Still just as real as anything else.
It seemed like I'd walked into an alternate universe.
You haven't met yourself yet.
I'm trapped.
I want real human moments. I want to see you.
I'm not in an objective, rational world.
You can have any kind of sex you want. Seems like everyone's sleepwalking through their waking state or walking through their dreams.
So, you produce a neo-human, the individual no longer restricted by time and space.
I'm just trying to get like a sense of where I am.
Just wake up.
Do you remember me?
When I say love, the sound comes out of my mouth and it hits the other person's ear, travels through their memories of love or lack of love.
It's like I'm being prepared for something.
I am a passenger. And I ride.
On really romantic evenings of South, I go salsa dancing with my confusion.
Everyone knows fun rules.
You can do whatever you want to.
Everything is possible.
You a dreamer?
You know it looks so good tonight.
Yeah. I don't see too many around lately.
Oh, the passenger. He rides and he rides.
Wow.
Nice. That's nice Iggy Pop there. And
yeah, anytime you use the passenger in your trailer, I'm fucking in.
This is an interesting thing, right? Because how do you sell this movie
Right.
before you know it kind of was a thing to even do this kind of rotoscoping in the very early days of it. Anyway, this is episode 65 of Movie Night Extravaganza. We are talking about Waking Life, the Richard Linklater movie. Very philosophical, very spiritual, very death-centered towards the end. I think that part is an interesting part to talk about because it seems like, at the end, it's like, where can they really go from here? And then it's like, oh, right, death. I am joined by Jay Underworld, illustrator, artist, rotoscoper, not a rotoscoped artist, but,
I am rotoscoped right now.
Yeah, not yet. But
no. But you're watching a rotoscope to me. I am actually just a stick figure.
Exactly.
Also joined by, the bright, dazzling Conan Neutron of Protonic Reversal and Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends.
Still on top, baby.
The jacket changes. The artistic shape of the jacket changes as you move.
I tried to put my most third eye looking bolo on for tonight, so I hope you all appreciate what I do for this show.
And of course, we're joined by Ben Burgis, host of Give Them an Argument, author of Canceling Comedians While the World Burns, as well as Christopher Hitchens, What He Got Right, Where He Went Wrong, and Why He Still Matters. Long time.
Welcome, Ben.
Thank you.
Long time coming onto this podcast, which obviously an offshoot of the Give Them an Argument movie streams that we did. For a
people. Forrest was talking about movies on the second season of Give Them an Argument. The fans liked it so much he got his own spin-off show.
It's like Snoop Dogg to Dr. Dre, really.
Right. This is like one of those episodes of Frasier where somebody visits him from Boston.
Exactly. How many references can we throw out there? Answer is a lot.
It's all in the family, but when they suddenly had the they had the Jeffersons revisit them again after the Jeffersons got their own spin-off show. And
Jeffersons was a spin-off. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that's odd, right?
Yeah. Sherman Hemsley, big Gong fan of the prog band Gong. Look that up on the internet, everybody. Turn this show off and look up that. It's a fascinating story. He was like their benefactor. It's wild. Anyway.
I almost said Sanford and Son because I was rewatching our last episode that we did, where where John Barber was talking about how he was the first person to give Red Fox a chance on TV. That was a wild fucking interview. And
we were truly
where we
passengers
occasionally
of that.
talked about the movie in question, but yeah, mostly it was John Barber running wild. I mean, he at one point, like, you pulled my favorite clip, which is him saying that he thinks Dan Rather should be waterboarded, which is like, okay, there we go.
No, first he said Dan Rather should be hung, and then you were like, oh, well, maybe, and then he's like, or maybe.
No, he says so not to actually that, but he said he should be killed, and I said, well, he's on pay cable, so he's pretty much already dead already, which he thought was funny, and that's a good showbiz quip. And then he said like he should be waterboarded. Well, I'm like, well, okay. This is not where I expected the evening to go, yet here we are.
Yeah,
so
that was a wild ride.
My pivot to waking life is that, a very different type of conspiracy theorist, Alex Jones, appears in this. I think I think it's interesting because, the post-internet version of Alex Jones as like this national celebrity with with prominence, like to the point where, I mean, now he's fucking, as he's like kicked off the internet pretty much, he probably is just going around in his car and yelling into the the car speaker or whatever for everybody to hear. But
returning to his roots, really.
But it's impossible to like almost fathom at this point that like at one point he was just a public access guy in Austin, and like just kind of like your neighborhood crank that was yelling into the TV. And then and we talked about this last night. I think the thing that really changed it was when he like infiltrated Bohemian Grove in 2000.
Which was John Ronson's thing. Alex Jones sidecard along with that and basically took it over and built a career on it.
Yeah.
So to be explicitly clear. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, it's also in the early stages of the career. I mean, the political feel of it was very different. Like even like 5 years after this movie came out in Scanner Darkly, he has a very similar cameo, and that's 2006, and he's still it's still like the kind of Alex Jones who like some like Austin like hippie leftist could be like, oh yeah, he's a little crazy, but he's cool, I like him.
Yeah, I saw him like smoking weed on the side of the road and like hanging out and fucking drunk with his shirt off, and he was just talking shit to all of us, and it's Alex Jones, cable guy.
He gets worked up. He gets all busy, gets all worked up.
I get a key bump from Alex Jones, and next thing you know, I'm just transported.
Minor sidebar. I love that in that scene, like the animation has him just gradually changing color and getting more like great use of it. I mean, in a movie full of great visuals, like great visual.
Yeah, I mean, on Twitter we were talking about people who like their job is to be angry on camera. And like Alex Jones is the ultimate version of that. Like, and that was his defense at the like custody hearings for his kids, that that like you can't like take into account anything he says on air because he's just playing a character.
Yeah, which also then everyone kind of just turn around and go, oh, you're just playing a character, then you don't actually mean what you say. So it's kind of that fucking catch-22 where he either has to admit that he's playing a character and
no, people, I'm in every word. Let me tell you,
the whole thing is fabricated, or none of it is fabricated. He loses his kids, or all of it is fabricated. He loses his fans. So it's like I don't know. I do like though
like the Sophie's Choice of assholes. Yeah,
you can just watch like the transition of Alex Jones through like Majority Report clips, and there's times where he gets like really. I mean, now he's like full blown with it, but like he gets worked up at Trump because obviously he why wouldn't he have jumped on the Trump train, I guess, as you say, like, or as but why wouldn't he have jumped on that? Like, it's the first kind of openly conspiracy theorist president. So,
yeah,
like,
although it was also awkward for him because throughout the Bush years and then the Obama years, he was like Jones was making a big deal. Like his big thing was like the national security state and spying on everybody in the FEMA camps and and all this stuff. And then Trump is running. Camps.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah,
and then Trump is running, and Trump is just like going on Alex Jones and saying, "Yeah, we need to spy on Moss more," and and then Alex just didn't say anything because like, what's he gonna do? Like, he has attached himself to this trade, like he's just gonna go with it. I mean, I'm sure he was devastated when Trump actually won because he would have known the script. if he'd lost, that would have been perfect, right? He really won, but the deep state got him, but like this, like, what are you going to do with this? Like, that's like,
I guess he won, people. I don't know. I don't know exactly what, we're going to commercial, buy some supplements.
At one point, my favorite one was Trump started fucking up, and Alex Jones was like, "Well, everybody knows that there's a thing where they drug whoever is the new president, and Trump's body is just so virile that the drugs they put inside of him just are he's powering through it, and
he's too virile, really." Yeah,
but he had went on this whole rant about how like the drugs are Trump is fighting through the drugs, and when you see him seeming like a little tired and groggy and weird, he's like, don't worry, he's powering through this, and the deep state's trying to bring him down, but they can't. And
it's amazing, like the cognitive dissonance it requires to maintain a character.
Well, yeah, because like honestly, it was a pretty good performance. Because like, what do you like? Okay, if you're Alex Jones, you spent the last like 30 years building up this brand, and then you've trapped yourself into this position where the guy you supported is president. So it's like, are you pro-government now? I mean, like, what do you do with that? Like,
well, folks, when I said, "Oh, government was terrible," I didn't mean this government. This government's actually okay, but the rest of them, not so much. Yeah, there's no nuance when you're doing. By the way, am I the only one that ever thought of Alex Jones as like he's just doing pro wrestling? It's like a pro wrestling thing, right? And I say that as someone I'm avowedly not a wrestling fan, but come on, like, do we?
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean,
clearly that's what this is, right?
It's kayfabe, is what you're seeing. You're recognizing the kayfabe of Alex Jones from the kayfabe of wrestling, and you can appreciate the kayfabe of wrestling, and you can appreciate, like Michael Brooks did, the kayfabe of Alex Jones.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that Trump was
okay, so perfect example. Sorry to barge in, but it's what I do. Like there was a thing with the orbs. Remember with Trump, he had there was those orbs, and like it was like they're just orbs, people. There's nothing crazy about it. And it's like, what is it? Aren't you Mr. Illuminati, Bohemian Grove, like global conspiracy?
That image should have been Christmas for Alex Jones. It would have been if the president had been anyone else.
Yeah, and they're just like, oh, they're just orbs. It's just a standard orb. It's like, what? Are you fucking kidding me right
now?
This is your brand, dog.
It let other conspiracy theorists like distance themselves from Alex Jones by being like, oh no, that's the CIA one. That's the one that's like,
yeah, those are the CIA orbs.
They're like, no, not the orbs. They're like, that's the conspiracy theorists that they've planted to like give you the wrong conspiracy theories.
My God,
I have. Yeah. So there were several like high profile conspiracy theorists that were like, oh no, that's the planted opposition. And we got the true stuff. We got the true conspiracy theories. You don't have to listen to that guy. He's a MAGA guy. Like, fuck that guy. Listen to our CIA conspiracy theories, and they're totally different. And those orbs, crazy orbs.
I didn't expect to take this to such an orb-related discussion, but I'm down with it. I think we're good. It's a good place for us to be.
We need to ponder our orbs more, I think.
Can I just say too?
They're pondering their orbs, Jerry.
Can I just say that if you were to, that's good. If you were to look at the overall reviews, say on Letterboxd for some unknown reason, you would think this is a movie about Alex Jones, by the way, with the amount of comments about it. It's like this Alex Jones is in this for maybe 2.5 minutes. Now they're a memorable 2.5 minutes.
Sure.
And that's in a movie with a lot of memorable scenes, but like sometimes I wonder how we're going to get out of focusing on these sorts of like micro niche things at the expense of everything else, which is a much larger discussion than talking about waking life. But I think it's a good topic to bring up because this movie is like basically you could call it conversation starter to the movie, basically. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's nuts how many there's so many big high level ideas being talked about.
And they only get like 30 seconds to a couple minutes a piece. Like they don't focus on, they don't hyper fixate on any of these ideas.
Like a dream.
They're kind of putting the ideas out there and you can like think whatever you want about them. And they're like, all right, moving on to somebody totally different.
Yeah, right. I mean, the appeal of the movie is mostly the atmosphere, but then that it's just all interesting, right? I mean, some of it's like crazy and ridiculous, but it's all interesting.
Yeah,
exactly. And one, it's the logic of it, like moving so fluidly from one thing to another. I think it's people attribute it to laziness. It's anything but lazy. Oh. Like, I mean, that's like Linklater's thing. Like he makes things that should be seem very extemporaneous, work, and they're actually very tautly set, and in a way that I don't think I understood before I finally saw Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, like that series, which is astounding. And I was telling Forrest, I avoided them for a while because I thought they were in The Princess Bride. Fred Savage's character talks about them being kissing movies, and they doesn't want to see a kissing movie. And I assumed that they were kissing movies, and lo, indeed they are. But they're also fantastic. And when I was a younger man and I saw Waking Life, and it had the scene with the two of the characters, the Julie Delpy character and Ethan Hawke, their characters reprising their roles from that film, I was like, what's this? I don't care about this. And I was like, this time, like, oh, great. Oh my God, that's awesome. I can't wait to see this, which is great. Because I think this, for me, that's perfectly indicative of what this film offers to you for different ideas and how you react to them as a different person than the first time you saw them, and what changed with you. And I think that's brilliant.
What's going on with you? What's changing with you? No, I also think that, your point about people being kind of these micro niche celebrities, or like, fulfilling that role like Alex Jones or something. It's incredibly interesting with Linklater as a director in general, because Andy and I watched Slacker a few months ago with Massive Film Guy. And we had an amazing 2-hour conversation about that on, an earlier podcast episode. And a lot of the
not canon, I wasn't on it. That's great. I listened to it. It's wonderful.
A lot of the same characters or type of characters, actors playing a similar type of character appear in this. And you can kind of glean, I think, from things that these are kind of people that hang out in Austin, people that are friends with Linklater. There's the great, my favorite scene in Slacker is the scene with the old anarchist who's, they're walking past the Ron Paul for president or for whatever sign. And he's like, oh, those are not real anarchists. I'm a real anarchist. Those are just pretty much like right-wing libertarian people. He calls it out 100%. They're those are people that are obsessed with money. And there's this old guy just riffing on how he thinks that bringing down the government, and McKinley, the guy that killed McKinley was the last real anarchist that really existed. And he's meditating on all this stuff. That guy appears again in this movie. When he's giving him this whole speech in a bar about, the human potential, and that introduces the chimpanzee concept, whereas we haven't really actually, gotten too far past that. And we have more in common with us to chimpanzees versus where we could leap as a species through potential. Is it laziness? Is it really, our own limitations? So he's meditating on that for a good 2.5 minutes. And it just, that kind of thing, you have to assume that that's someone that wanted to be an actor or was an actor in Austin, that he's tapping again and again for these movies. So, it's interesting to see someone like Alex Jones, who assumably wasn't going to get bigger than that. You know what I mean? If his career hadn't blown up with Bohemian
Nobody
Grove,
would have predicted his career arc, which basically, I know he won't even acknowledge him, but he should basically send John Ronson a gift basket every freaking year, because basically if he hadn't been able to sidecar and then take over and attribute it to himself, the whole Bohemian Grove thing, he wouldn't be the guy that he is today. Probably better for culture, but worse for his career. So, yeah. But of course, John Ronson, as we all know, who does John Ronson hang out with? Well, not usually Alex Jones types, right? He's Forrest, you pulled that that clip the other day, right? We were talking. Was that yesterday? I can't remember.
Which one?
Can't get it out of my head.
Oh, the Adam Curtis.
Yeah, Adam Curtis. Adam Curtis and John Ronson are like-minded. John Ronson and Alex Jones are not like-minded, but Alex Jones. So, and that's an incredible. Them is the name of that book, by the way. And I recommend, since we got Ben on, we got some readers watching. Pick up Them by John Ronson. I still think So You've Been Publicly Shamed is his masterwork, if any, but Them is actually very, very fascinating. And you can basically see, unfortunately, the accidental protogenesis of the Alex Jones that we all know and loathe.
So I guess,
thank you.
I guess taking this conversation to a level of bringing it back to the give them an argument style of these movie episodes, right? Kind of going through it in order, which we stopped doing because we realized we were horrible at going through things in order without Ben. He tried it for the first 4 episodes and it did not go well.
Yeah, Ben is clean your room kind of thing, except
in order. Yeah, he's the major domo of thesis statements. We get it.
Yeah, I think that the you know, American Jordan Peterson. That's what I've been going for.
I told Kenzo that because Kenzo was going through like a lot of therapy stuff. Like that's a big part of our show, like that we were doing. Like we were talking about mental health and all this stuff. And I was like, you should become, you know, the leftist version of Jordan Peterson. And I meant like connecting with people and kind of getting them into like a space where, you know, because his pop psychology stuff isn't that bad. Like it's just normal, you know, pop psychology pablum. And I was like, so I meant that, but like I think Kenzo took it literally, as in like he should literally be Jordan Peterson, but for the left. And so it led to like some pretty funny like he like had me play Jordan Peterson clips, and he was like, well, actually what I would say is, I was like, that's not what I meant. I was speaking like more metaphorically to this.
You're not playing a role exactly. So I'm sorry, what are we doing?
Like Kermit on stream.
Yeah,
there's enough of that.
I mean, I think for Waking Life, it would be particularly tricky to.
How? Yeah, where do you start or where do you begin? It's an Ouroboros.
Yeah, because like you're not going to go through like all, you know, like
Ouroboros.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say like, I think the first, you know, like to the extent that there's anything resembling a plot in this movie, then I guess like probably the first like key thing is the boat car.
The boat car. Yes, thank you.
So I would say the beginning is interesting, but even before the boat car, because it's the two kids or the three kids sitting there with the fortune teller, and as she says, dream is destiny, he wanders away and then floats up. And so like it's kind of giving you an opening to this that doesn't make any sense, and then bringing it back at the end and giving you like the finale with the same thing. So you're kind of having like an open and closed, I guess, system, and you have to wonder like, did the kid die back then or something, and is this his whole life and like he's going through it, or you know, is this a different kid? Like, so from that opening scene, right, it goes to first that weird the violin thing, which happens again at the end, and then the boat car. And I think that's like the first philosophical kind of question, or you know, in some ways, I mean, like more I guess the aestheticization of philosophy, because it's kind of just some guy giving you his like personal like.
Yeah, I mean, so the guy with the boat car is just sort of giving like general kind of like, you know, it's like I don't know exactly how to put this, except I believe there are a lot of people in Austin who probably talk exactly like this, but you know, like he's just giving his general thoughts about life, but he's being super duper intense about it, and also he's in a boat car, right? You know, and then
call him SpongeBob because he's driving around the boat car.
And then there's the surreal thing where our unnamed protagonist is going to be like forgets where he's supposed to be going, and so the other guy, like the other passenger, is like, drive down 2 blocks, go 3 blocks to the right, take a left, and then drop this guy off there. It's like,
which is totally what you do to fuck with somebody. You'd be like, how can I think of like these really quick directions to give have someone go into the worst possible street corner,
or like a hot dog stand or something. Yeah. Well, and then so the turnaround of that, and the part, honestly, and this part never leveled me in the way that it has until this last viewing, was that he sees them. Our again unnamed protagonist sees that guy, the boat car captain, as a convenience store clerk, right? In quote unquote real life, and like he's like, hey, you were driving, you know, I met you were driving a boat car. He's like,
no man,
man, I don't drive a boat car. And that yeah, I don't drive a boat car, because that's such a like.
So he says it was such like disdain too.
Yeah,
like,
well,
like
so that's my literal point, is that like. He says it was with such calculated disdain that only happens when you tell someone your dream or something along those lines. That like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, boat car? What are you even talking about? Like, and I was laughing for a solid 2 minutes probably at that, and I knew the scene, but it hit me different. Like, I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, no, and that's one of my favorite like scenes in the movie, because it's got that. that line.
Yeah, no, man, I don't have a boat car.
Yeah, and where the boat car says like, and like the boat car guy at this point as this just completely normal convenience store clerk, who's like just going about his business or whatever, until he says, "Man, this must be like parallel universe night. The cat that was just in here just ran out the door." Well, he comes up to the counter, and I say, "What's the word, turd?" And he lays down this burrito and he kind of looks at me, like he stares at me, and he says, "I have but recently returned from the valley of the shadow of death. I am rapturously breathing in all the odors and essences of life. I've been to the brink of total oblivion. I remember and ferment the desire to remember everything." At which point, protagonist asks him, "Well, what did you say to him?" And he says, "Well, I mean, what could I say? I said, if you're going to microwave that burrito, I want you to poke holes in the plastic wrapping because they explode. And I'm tired of cleaning up your little burrito dudes."
I love that for so many reasons, but not the least of which is it does what the lyrics of John Darnielle from the Mountain Goats does this a lot. We'll just put something absolutely calculatingly fantastic and soaring in rhetoric, and then put it next door to something incredibly like mundane and super easy to understand. And it makes I've been obsessed with that as a songwriter, because I think it's such a hard road to walk on, and that exchange is perfectly emblematic of that. I love it dearly.
It also has these like weird like NPC vibes, right? Like you're playing a video game or something, and every time someone walks up to this guy, he goes, "What's the word, turd?" And then you engage with him, and then he's like, "Well, I just heard from this guy that like just returned from like the valley of the shadow of death, and he was like,
exposition dump for your next quest." Yeah, exactly, totally. And then like you go to follow up to find
your
out more
quest
about
is
it.
You must microwave a burrito and not have any of it explode.
No, that's real.
I think that there is kind of a thesis statement though in the opening boat car scene.
Mhm.
And it's kind of the most I think facile and kind of simplistic version of this. But he says it's like you come into this planet with a crayon box. You may get the 8-pack, you may get the 16-pack, but it's all in what you do with the colors you're given. And don't worry about drawing inside the lines or coloring outside the lines. I say color outside the lines. And he's going on this like extremely facile and like simplistic rant about individuality and like being yourself and what that really means. And that sets you up for the next multiple like.
Is that facile though? I don't agree with that.
No, I don't think it's the thought is facile. I think that it's explored in depth in the next few scenes, and it's explored from all these different angles. I think this guy is giving you like the the down home Texas like metaphor.
It's the Reader's Digest version of it. Yeah, we get it. Yeah.
So I do think that it's interesting that they do that because he gets hit by the car after that. He gets out and and that's you can assume maybe where the dream starts or maybe where he died. Like there's a million different I think ideas you can take from that. But from there, that's when they start exploring these ideas with so-called professionals instead of just boat car guy that works at a convenience store. Like the first person obviously is his his philosophy professor or teacher of some variety, at least. That's
So there's a philosophy. Robert Solomon is a philosophy professor at UT Austin, and he's talking about. He starts out
because they're all connected. It's like they have a philosophy professor fight club.
He texts Ben about existentialism all the fucking time. He's just like,
yeah, no, that's right. That's like
I'm just like in Pig,
I'm like pretty cursory in my response. Oh, yeah, that's great, man. Okay.
And he's like, hey, you better not fucking miss microwave that burrito, by the
way. But yeah, because there are two actually. So there are two like philosophy professor like little intense lectures. They're like attached to each other, but I think they might be on time break. I don't remember exactly, but they have there's the thing about existentialism, and there's the thing about like free will and determinism, which is actually like a great. I've abused my position of power to like force like many intro philosophy classes to watch this entire movie straight through, but like also like even if you're not going to do that, it's like a good thing to show in a class like that, like just to show that scene, right? Because it's actually like a really good, clear exposition of like what the problem is, and what determinism is, and why that might be a problem for for free will, and and all of that stuff. And I mean, I think that's part of the appeal of the movie, the way that stuff like that is just like woven together with like just insane nonsense, like the I don't know, the guy, the prisoner who's like ranting about how he's gonna like cut off the judge's, eyelids, so he'll see him, himself being, all the stuff he's gonna do to torture him, or the two
Yeah,
guys.
but even that kind of connects to the same thing, right? Because I wrote down tons of fucking quotes from this movie, but he says, "I want you to know that it's me. I'm the one doing it to you, me." So like even this prisoner that's like sitting there ruminating in a tiny jail cell, which I would assume that it's the same character in some ways as Slacker. That guy plays the that guy plays this weird sketchy guy that gets in their car and is just driving around with Richard Linklater and I can't remember who the other actor is, but like he just talked about like how his stepfather just died and like he's going to visit him and he's like, nah, he was a piece of shit, don't worry. Like it's this weird scene. So that same guy comes back in this movie. And that scene also kind of has a pinball machine. I think it's like a similar vibe to this movie. Like, you know what I mean? But like, so but when
he
he
tells the Philip K. Dick story in
yeah. But I'm saying like, so there's like these connections between the two movies because Slacker is like really the first, I think, thing that Linklater really did that's like a full length movie. And so I think it's interesting that like even the most psychotic prisoner standing in this tiny little fucking cell that's like going to be there forever, probably, presumably, you know what I mean? Like that's like, oh, I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to kill everyone. He still wants everyone to know that it was him. It was him doing the killing. It was him, that has done all this stuff. And he's thinking about all the stuff he could do. But like at the same time, he's like, I want to make my mark. Like I want my own individuality to shine through this.
Yeah, like, it's a lot of different ways of like there's that whole chunk of the movie that's like a lot of different ways of thinking about freedom and individuality. So there's the fancy like philosophy class stuff, there's the prisoner, there's there's the two guys in the bar shooting each other, after giving like NRA slogans about how was a well-armed populace is the best defense against tyranny.
Which the most logical thing to happen from that is not, hey, let's we're actually going to shoot some guy robbing a bar. It's like, oh, we accidentally shot each other because we got drunk. Like that's like the next logical step to that, because it's like, two drunk guys and the guy puts a fucking gun on the table at a bar. It's like nothing good's gonna come from that.
And it is notable too that this would have been, what's 2001 that this was shot. Yeah. So like things have become so much more pronounced with that style of person and type of real life character, that the idea that there would be anything but like something like nefarious and to watch out for is kind of like an outmoded concept. But at the time it was sort of like, well, maybe kind of side eye this dude, like see what's going on, but we'll see. And now it's more like, oh, that guy's a dick, probably.
I mean, I guess to push back a little, I mean, so this is 2001, so I mean, I don't know how long it took.
When was the Brady bill? I guess that was like 90s, huh?
Yeah, that was like the late 90s, and like the late 90s was a period where like right-wing gun nuts like were actually like pretty prominent, right? I mean, there was the Oklahoma City, shooting, like the Michigan militia, that was like a big thing. There was
Bowling for Columbine came out at the end of the decade.
Columbine, right? Yeah, they were all the prominent school shootings. There was the
back when we actually gave names to like school shootings. Whatever one happened in.
I mean, just shootings in general, because I remember like I was in Texas for the Luby cafeteria massacre. And like nobody remembers that one, but that was a big deal.
I used the movie night cafeteria massacre.
Luby cafeteria. That's the thing. Ask Jen about it.
but then okay, so I guess my point with that is more like, but that's before like people identified as amosexuals, really. Like as bad as it was, like it wasn't guns is my whole identity kind of bad. It was getting there. Like we were right in the precipice.
Yeah, it was definitely getting there.
But here's also what I must mention. Texas always had a little bit of that, even when it was like and speaking of someone that has toured a lot, there's Austin and there's like the rest of surrounded by Texas, right? But even like some of the folks in Austin would be like, oh yeah, of course I got a gun, whatever, it's no big deal. They wouldn't necessarily be people that would be only guns guns only, Zardos level of engagement. But like it's far worse and more pronounced now, and that's one of the things that makes this movie a capsule in time in that way, because this is right on the precipice of that changing. That's what I want to get out.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that it's just I think that did hit Texas harder and faster, right? Like that idea and that kind of philosophy in some way that like, oh well, like vigilantism, I guess, is something to be commended. And this has been a concept explored in film a lot, like Taxi Driver, even, you know what I mean? Like Taxi Driver literally plays with that, and I want to do an episode on that one day, and it's crazy that we haven't. But like, it plays with the idea that like the only difference between like a vigilante hero and a and like a villain or an assassin or like a criminal is who they shoot. So
well, that's the whole Dirty Harry ethos, right? That's how all that magical realism for right wingers.
That with you'd assume that the guy that he shot was like a petty criminal. If he did even he's kind of bullshitting. He tells the whole story, and then obviously like he's drunk and he has his gun, and the guy's like, well, why don't you fire it and find out? And then he just does, and it's like, yeah, you could have seen that coming because this person is fucking hot in the trigger anyway. Like
who could have predicted that?
In some ways, like what was like back in the was it 70s? It was Dirty Harry. There was Death Wish, and like those movies were like kind of shocking to people at that time.
Motherfucking Charlie Bronson.
Yeah. But it's like now I think just like sort of like movies vaguely glorified vigilantes like that just doesn't even register as like anything that would be like controversial that people would take notice of anymore.
Yeah. But then by the same token, look at the Marvel Punisher series, right? Like they basically invented an entirely new storyline for the character because so many of the people with the Blue Lives Matter skulls and whatever have adopted that character without knowing anything about it or the character's actual real life comic motivations. And so they basically, to get the Punisher on the screen, they had to like change the character somewhat and give him an arc that was very specific rather than just like, this is a guy who believes that the law has failed and only helps like the corrupt, doesn't actually help any of the people, et cetera, which is a much deeper, it goes more into like Frank Castle is kind of ACAB to a certain degree. He just won't kill them. Which is kind of crazy.
Blue Lives Matter Punisher symbols though, which is an insane.
It's literally one of the first things I said for it. I'm saying just because they don't fucking understand the character doesn't mean the character tacitly agrees with the
and there's some great issues of the Punisher where he's actually like killing cops and explaining like there's
just another criminal. They're criminal in a uniform. Yeah, exactly. It's heavy stuff. I mean, and it's honestly where are those depictions, because they just didn't have the stones to do it, frankly, for the Marvel. And I thought the Netflix
and Marvel's also not like sued the pants off police departments like they would, because I mean Disney is such a IP hawk. They go after everything. Like I'm surprised that they haven't gone after the cops with the Punisher stuff.
Anyway, I didn't mean to turn this into Punisher discourse. Sorry, guys, but like,
but I mean, actually, also another good one that somebody points out in the chat, is David Koresh. I actually completely forgot about that in the rundown of all the crazy right wing gun shit from the 90s.
Oh yeah. I was also right up the street from there. I did not live there.
Lesser known musician by the name of David Koresh.
Well, they had the whole Waco like Netflix series pretty recently, and they had the entire thing kind of playing out playing out with famous actors and playing with who you feel, I guess, sympathetic towards in the story, and like I don't know, it was kind of fascinating. No,
I mean actually like you read like just like spend like half an hour with the Wikipedia entry on Waco. It's like there are way more levels of insanity than like anything you might vaguely remember, from what happened. But I think like if anything now we maybe were like cycling back around, because I feel like in the 90s, like 96, right, Clinton had the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act, and like the anti-terrorism that we were talking about was like really like right-wing domestic terrorism. That was like
Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah, exactly.
And first try at the World Trade Center.
I mean the World Trade Center thing, like that was like 93, but that was like a little bit of a blip, right? Most of the terrorism that people were thinking about at that time really wasn't that. And then of course, from like 2000, basically throughout the like Bush and Obama years, like that was just completely swamped out of everybody's minds by like Al Qaeda style, Islamic fundamentalist terrorism. And now I think we're finally like coming back around a little bit where like we're now, I think, like right wing domestic terrorism is like taking up a lot more space in people's heads again, especially like post January 6th.
Yeah, well, I think that we went through this
They're
weird.
just some good old boys having a good time. What you got a problem with that, Ben?
No, but I've been thinking about this actually quite a bit lately. I think for a long time that they tried to, like, throughout the Trump administration, and like the early years of the late years of the Obama administration, like they tried to make kind of Antifa, like anti-fascist anarchist, like black blocs, which it like you would think kind of would be in some ways like a terrifying concept too. Like if you're looking at it from like the point of view of like white suburban moderate people, right? Like you would think that in some ways that would be a perfect thing. Like all of a sudden a bunch of people run up and just like kind of firebomb a Starbucks or something,
right?
And it's like kids in their 20s or something. And we talked about Mother Custer's Goes to Heaven with Megan Day the other day, and the actual like anarchists running out throughout Germany in like the 70s, and the similar concept, right, where like it's just like these random acts of violence, maybe not violence necessarily to hurt people in the case of Antifa, but like this kind of thing, like maybe we can inspire an emotional reaction to get an insane amount of fucking law enforcement funding with this. Like that's going to get us like, our billions of dollars to, fund law enforcement, no more defund the police, like ideas, like, you know what I mean? Like we're really going to beef up with that. It didn't work. So what do you have to do from there? It's like right-wing extremists that are like, literally storming the fucking Capitol. Is that going to work? And it's like, yeah, all right, that worked. Like,
yeah, to a point, right? Like, I don't know how, I mean, I think it's like early days yet, like we'll kind of see like how long that holds anybody's attention. But
I mean, it's not a deep bong hit, but it's like, it's like
there's
it's a puff pass, it's a
definitely at least a terrorism contact buzz there. But but yeah, I mean, I guess so there's this early cluster of scenes that's about like free will and freedom and individuality, and then and like personhood. Like I remember there's one with was it like the women in the coffee shop or something, and they're talking about I see a picture of myself as a little kid, and
talking about Benedict Anderson's what is it, Imagine Communities or whatever. That's like Michael Brooks used to talk about that book a lot. But yeah, and then I feel like later in the movie, there's this cluster of scenes that's about like mostly is about like I don't know. I'm trying to come up with like the less pretentious word, but like epistemology, right? Is anything real? Can you know what's real? Like all that stuff. Like like most memorably, I saw Forrest riffing about this on Twitter earlier. The light bulb, the light scene, right? They established that you supposedly, right, in a dream, you can't change the light levels, and so this was always like the dumb gag that I would do after I showed this movie in class. I would like walk over to like, it's like the movie finished as the credits were going. I would like go out over and like pretend to be trying to turn on the light, to not be able to do it. But,
visual physical humor,
which is funny because I feel like the most nightmares I've had are in like a college classroom like this where they take place, and it's like everything's normal, and then you're like, oh shit, I didn't do any of the work, and I'm supposed to give a fucking presentation today. I should probably not be here.
Where are my clothes? Where are my clothes?
Well, and there's so much of it that's just like, one character talking to another, being like, "Am I in a dream?" The other character, "No." Exactly what a dream would say. Like that. There's so much, and I love this movie, but there's so much of that. Like where, and again, I'm playing that for comedic effect, but there is that level of oh wow, crazy, and like the light switch thing is a perfect example. Like the one character like is telling the protagonist about that, and then like he hits there's like, oh, and then it's like. And everyone's just sort of like,
which is also funny because like most of the political content in this movie is sort of like, kind of what you would expect from a kind of like sort of, somebody who's like vaguely anti-establishment in sort of a liberal way, in like Austin in 2000, 2001, So
Yeah, it's
like,
it's that time period too is important because
no, the time period is
yeah.
very important for understanding the vibe, right? We still like Alex Jones. There's a
pre 9/11 is the best.
Yeah,
way to
it's a very pre 9/11 movie. But
that's because I said 9/11 was a vibe shift.
Yeah,
3/11 was an inside job.
No, that's certainly true. I have. Oh Jesus! I was actually just thinking about this earlier today because I was talking to Cole James Cash on the Collins show, and we were talking about the stuff going on at the U.S. Canadian border, and I was remembering like how crazy it was to me post 9/11 when for the first time they actually made you bring a passport to go to Canada. It's like, you don't need to go and bring a passport. It's fucking Canada. It's not a like that's not really
Canada with a printed ID that I made myself because I didn't have a license or anything, and they took it, and I got there and came back. And look at me, I'm still here.
It was actually a parking pass. They were very tolerant.
This is the word Andy in crayon. Which state issued this? Oh, Texas. Yeah. All right. Texas is. Oh, yeah. That's
the state of
that tracks,
being
that tracks,
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I remember like the first time, like whatever, like 2002. Grown up very close to the Canadian border, did this all the time. It was never an issue. Nobody ever asked for a passport. And then like 2002, like they still let us in, but like the like border guard coming back to the U.S. was like, "Where's your his passport?" It's like, passport? What are you talking about? And he was like, "Well, you need to." All right, I'm slipping into doing this like guy at the Michigan Ontario boarding crossing, like with the accent of like a movie like Southern Sheriff, but like but it's like but it's like, well, September the 11th, changed everything. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, fuck you. But that's the
doing full Fargo voice.
When I crossed the border in 2002, I got smart.
ID.
I had a guy from who had a military ID drive, and we just put him in the driver's seat, and it was funny because he had a Russian accent too. So he's like, "Yes, I am from military." No,
please allow me all your nuclear secrets.
but
Star Trek 4, but like it's it's definitely very pre 9/11, but there is one moment in the movie that's in that light bulb scene of like actual like leftism. There's the guy who's there's the like folk singer who's talking about having a dream where he's at work all day, and then he finally, finally the long day at work is over, and you wake up and you realize that it was just a dream. It's bad enough we're selling our waking lives for a minimum wage. Now they get our dreams for free.
Yeah, and the way he does it is like that perfect, like almost like definitely like anarchist kind of like strumming on the guitar, slowly going over it. Like you have to slowly like ease into like, oh no, like yeah, shit, like. If you're working to that level, like if you're working that much and then you start dreaming about working, like it's pretty much like a company that owns your dreams. And I mean, I'm sure Elon Musk is working on that right now.
By the way, absolutely have been there. And it sucks because you're like, I can't get away from this shit even in my sleep. You kidding me? Like it's terrible. It's the first sign of the Japanese have a word for it. Karoshi. Death from overwork. Of course the Japanese have a word for it, right?
Oh, the Germans would be funnier.
Yeah, probably. And more multisyllabic. But yeah, Karoshi, death from overwork. And that's
dreaming working.
Well, and that yeah. So I saw, when I saw this as a much younger man, like about when it came out, I guess, like that didn't hit me as hard as it does now.
Yeah.
And part of the least of which is like the workplace exploitation that has gone on in the name of the pandemic, and the like, oh, well, you aren't doing anything, right? Like, well, it doesn't matter if I'm doing anything or not. This is my time and not yours, and you are not paying for that, and you are not allowed for that. But that is somewhat still an untold story, because I think still people are misunderstanding certain aspects of day-to-day work for jobs that aren't easily understand, like, blue collar, like going to a place, punching a clock, doing a thing. And it's amazing to me that scene is one of the ones that hit differently. We talked about earlier for me, where I'm like, wow, that's prescient. That's incredibly prescient, because if you think about like the past few years and that push towards like work and life being like this sublimated entity that like you are working at like the Googleplex and you have like the coffee shop and the restaurants designed so you never have any need to leave and you just live at your job and are always working.
Yeah, and I mean, like if you're and there's the sort of non-corporate like gig economy version of the same thing, of course, right? That
which
like,
is my other life, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, you know, like, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, right? I mean, I'm sure, you know, like whatever. I mean, I have a, you know, I mean, I think I had like 6 days off last year, right? You know, like I'm sure. You know, I'm sure Andy has dreams that are about, you know, or about like all the people who are like hitting him up in the middle of the day, you know, asking for thumbnails. You know,
Oh God, I've actually dreamed like I was making something for you, woke up and then had to make something for you.
See, even in your dreams, you can't get away from it. They own you there too.
But I mean that is kind of the thing, right? I mean, like if you read like capitalist realism, right? You know what, like. There's this great riff in there where Mark Fisher is talking about the difference between Goodfellas and Heat, and talking about the way that the like Heat is like the neoliberal gangster movie, right? You know that like
and the code that actually does in some ways, I mean, invoke feelings of family and stuff like that. You know, in older gangster movies.
Yeah,
I mean, whether or not
like,
they mean that, like, you know, different story, but.
But older gangster movies are super rooted in like a particular place, and people are always like eating good Italian food, and you know and you know and the thing in Heat, you know, it's like, oh yeah, you have to be ready to just abandon everything in every single instant.
And there's the thing with like he has I think
wearing your allegiance.
Well, Mark Fisher references the fact that he's like, oh, well, like you have a wife and a family or something, like, and you kind of have to just be able to just take off because you're tailing somebody who's like a neoliberal gangster. Like you have to just kind of abandon that. You know, if you have more than what you can fit into like a, you know, like a small fucking backpack or something, like you're gonna be fucked.
Yeah, well, no, okay. Exactly. So like,
I
was just gonna say, I mean, I think that like that's the what's like the waking life scene is like a very old fashioned version of this problem, right? But it's like what we have now is this like awful combination for a lot of people of the experience of the minimum wage worker described in the Making Life scene and the experience of like a small businessman who has to like hustle like every moment of every day and like worry about going out of business and all of that stuff. And now a lot of people have the fun experience of having a weird combination of both.
And I've been thinking a lot about like I've just had like conversations with people that kind of have had chaotic, I guess, personal experiences in the last, you know, during the pandemic or whatever. You know, like leaving relationships or like, you know, a whole bunch of different stuff, like family stuff didn't work out. And a lot of times people take both feet and like just jump into working. Like they find a job and they're like, I'm gonna, you know, I don't want to think about what's happening in my personal life, which is what you should be thinking about. You know what I mean? Like under like a fair, more equitable system, that's what you'd be thinking about. But like, you know, we've kind of transactionalized all of these different relationships in a similar way to the way we work. So like people will go, oh, well, you know, I'm self-destructive in these situations. I'm going to put both feet into working for somebody at a company. Like I have friends that like work for like Amazon and they're like, well, I'm going to be the best Amazon worker I could be. And I'm like, that's not good. That's going to have fucking horrible implications down the line. They're tracking your movements. Don't do that. But it's like, you know, there's the kind of this desire that like, well, you know, my personal life is chaotic. Personal lives in general are chaotic. Why don't I kind of fully subsume myself into making money right now? And I noticed a lot of people around my age or like, you know, like as I've been growing up under this, like the most, I think, dystopian version of this system that we've really ever had. People are fully willing to, for short periods of time, like they're like, well, at least work is simple. At least I'm only doing this stuff. And it's like, they're going that the personal to, you know, the personal to work relationship is bleeding through. Like, don't do that. That is fucking awful. They're going to take your dreams to the same way that they do, like the same way they're talking about in Waking Life, when he's like, you know, it's bad enough that they own your waking hours. Now they own your dreams too. Like that's what's going to happen. And
I mean, it's the, you know, right. I mean, it's like the sort of almost innocent Futurama version was that they beam dreams into your head. They beam ads into your head while you sleep.
Right. But if I may, because if I don't jump in here, my freaking head's gonna explode. But it's important to note that I think there's far fewer examples.
Conan Neutron, everyone.
Well, yes, thank you, Conan.
Sorry.
There's far more examples instead of people willingly being like, I'm going to like whatever, be on the grind or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's far more examples of people using empathy and the illusion of family and familiarity as basically taking advantage of people's ruinous empathy. Meaning that like using emotional engagement in a way that like, well, you know, if you don't come in and do this, then you're doing your coworkers a disservice by doing that. And it's all passive voice. And here's where everybody gets it wrong. And I mean, everyone always gets this wrong, is that like, it's almost never like, we think of like these horribly villainous things happening. We think of them as being done almost by like, you know, Machiavellian style villains. Right, they're sitting there with like, here's my list of evil deeds that I'm going to do today. It's not like that. It's a soft tyranny. It's a soft tyranny, and you can sum it up in a lot of different ways. But basically, a lot of people that are engaged in this kind of process and exploitation of the workforce, they would prefer if everyone had the same supposition of labor as H-1B1s, which H-1B1 visas are basically conscription, and because the idea is. And this is why they're bipartisan too. Everyone loves H-1B1s because you basically have a worker that can never say no. Because if you say no, they don't even have to give a reason. You're shipped back off. And in these folks, usually younger men, especially in tech, are supporting not only their immediate family, but their extended family and like people associated with them. So everything is not just right on them for their own personal stakes and for their own personal like immediate family, but every part of it that they cannot say no. And this is exploited, especially in tech, on a level to which most people do not even realize.
Oh, it's exploited everywhere in every business with that type of visa too. It's
100%. And then
horrible, like the farm workers are in slave-like conditions.
Exactly, it's conscription. It's essentially conscription, but it's soft conscription because they can fall back on well, you have the choice to opt out anytime you want, and it's such a false dichotomy. But it's never laid bare and put out there because again, this is like bipartisan support. Everyone loves it. Hey, we love the cheap labor, everybody, don't we? And it makes me crazy because I don't know if it would be possible to tell that story in a way that have any cultural cachet and bring people forward in a way that could cause meaningful change because so many industries rely on that. Anyway, that's a bummer. Sorry, but I needed to get that out there because I think it's important when we talk about, especially certain popular podcasts among the left seem to have a frankly preschool level understanding of the labor movement and the actual problems we face in
Jesus Christ, Conan, if you want to say something to me, just say it.
I'm right here. I can hear you.
A certain philosophy-based
speaking riddles now. Ben, you're cool. Everyone else can go to hell.
Since we got the literate audience tonight to plug Border and Rule by Harsh Walia, who writes beautifully about all what Conan was just speaking about, and actually has a fuck yeah, pump your fist moment at the end. So, highly recommend.
What is it called again? What is it?
Border and Rule.
Okay.
Nice.
No, and I think Conan, as someone who before doing what I'm doing now, which, is far preferable to what I was doing before, like college and graduating, and then kind of randomly running into Michael Brooks at a cafeteria and ending up doing editing and like actually giving a fuck about what I'm doing. Like,
it wasn't a Luby's, was it?
Yeah. No, professionalism as chaos theory. Yeah. It's who you run into in random.
It was the basement of some like place in a Brooklyn mall that, because of course it was, that like they had all of these different vendors set up, and like they were just strange. Like it would be like, hey, do you want like Japanese barbecue and Korean barbecue? We'll have that here, but over here we have is
that like a world market kind of thing where they got
but
here's
like,
the curry and here's
it literally would be that, and then it'd be like, but over here we have the worst Texas barbecue you've ever seen in your life.
Right. Yeah. I call it mall barbecue. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it is weird. Like I don't want to. I know, there's been a lot of digressions. A lot of them have been my fault, but like it is really weird that that like Brooklyn like for being this like epicenter of like, you know, super crowded, all kinds of different people, et cetera, lots of people who, you know, but like there are some cuisines that just like invariably suck if you get them there.
Southern cuisines, because they fucking despise anybody from the South. But so what I was saying though with this is that to like kind of add to Conan's point, most of my jobs, you know, I live in like a small ass town. Like New Paltz has less than 7,000 people, and you know when it comes down to working at restaurants, which restaurant industry is, besides the college in New Paltz, is kind of the most vibrant industry, I guess. Pretty much everybody that doesn't, you know, get out of here works in restaurants pretty much forever. And restaurants serving fucking obnoxious college kids from Long Island and from the city. Like that's kind of what you do here. So, but then you end up being kind of everyone's like someone you either went to high school with or like somebody you met in the process of like going to school. Like you go work at these places, and even when they're like, when they have a bigger management team or something, like it's like, hey, we're kind of like a family here, right? Like we're all from the same small town. Like you don't really have to have more money. You don't really have to, you know, talk to your coworkers, right? We're like a family. Like you knew my son. Like my son went to school with you. Like you're not going to talk to your coworkers, right? And there's that level of like, you know, people kind of identify themselves with like these tiny fucking businesses, because of course they do, because it's like, you know, a lot of times you get a job because it's like, you know, your friend's parent or like your friends, you know, like, so it becomes like this whole weird thing where you're and I ended up working for like my first job that I worked for a few months, and I was terrible at it. I did not want to wash dishes, but I was washing dishes at a Japanese restaurant that were kind of pissed off. They had to have everybody working there was white, and they did not want they put up a sign at one point in Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, not in English, that said, hey, if you're Asian, please apply here. We don't
for the love of fuck, no whitey, please. Thank you.
No, like not no, like we're tired of like pretty much they were tired of hiring all their son's friends. Who now is like a really successful my friend that whose parents own this is now like a really successful chef in like Hiroshima. But like, you know, at the time they like put this up at the college everywhere, and people kept on like, one person understood I think one person understood Japanese and was like, this is what this says. Like it says, hey, like apply to this restaurant. We're looking for all positions. But it's like, you know, you kind of feel like you're pressured into the situation where like you don't want to ask for more money, or you don't want to ask for like a better whatever, because it's like this is your friend's family. And I feel like for the majority of people in the United States, like we talk a lot about people working for big business, but like the small business thing is loved by both Republicans and Democrats. They love small businesses. They love businesses with like the least amount of employees, and the less employees you have and the less range your business really has, the less of a chance you really have to like, you know, even have some kind of unionization drive. Like we're talking about Starbucks as like this huge fucking corporation, or like Amazon is this huge fucking corporation that stretches out everywhere. If your place that you work is just the town you live in, there's no like the unionization talk can't happen. Like there's no lifeline to anything else anywhere. Like
although I'll bet you anything that now that there are like 100 Starbucks, you know, that are filing for unionization, that we will probably get some like, you know, small coffee shops and stuff that, you know, like you know, I think I mean, I think actually that one's kind of a weird example, right? Because like it is, you know, I mean, it is this like huge corporation, but it's also a franchise, right? So I mean, like you're still talking about, you know, a very small.
I was talking to Jeffrey Barrios yesterday, and he was saying he was interviewing employees that were like unionizing at small coffee shops.
Well, I've been waiting to break in here, but like that happened in Collectivo here. Collectivo is a Wisconsin, like not like tiny chain, but like not like Starbucks level too, but pretty big here. It was a huge kerfuffle because they did the thing where they like, rather than just accede to like the union demands, they like hired some you know, what do they call it? There's some euphemistic term for when they the new union busters, right? Like what do they call them? There's some term for it. Anyway,
like workforce alignment.
Yeah, workforce alignment scheduler 2 or something along the whatever it is.
So mad that they can't use the term Pinkerton.
Because that's what it basically is.
Union, right? I know what I'm saying. Like woke union people are like, oh my god, they took the collar. They took the woke collar.
but it's crazy because Collectivo in every other way is like your model example of a local, regional-ish chain that did everything right up until that point, and it was a big turd on the coffee table for them. Like to the point that like even for myself, like it made me think twice about like, they have like one blend. It's my favorite coffee blend. I always pick. I loved it before I lived here. I would get on tour. I would pick up a bag of it to take home. That's how much I liked it. And like it made me think, I'm like, do I really want to be supporting these guys if they worked that hard? Organization. And again, this is not Howard Schultz and company, right? This is like ostensibly like a little bit above a mom and pop, but not like a mega corporation either. But there's a soft complicity to all of it. And all of it uses weaponized empathy all the time. Uses empathy against its workers, against themselves. And that's something that's fascinating to me because that's not what Waking Life, see what I did there, is talking about with a lot of things, but it talks about some of those concepts and like emotional concepts. And like they frame it in terms of individualism rather than collective action. But I think it is actually very woke in that way because it very effectively gets across some points.
Like there's the scene with the girl who is like has the line about how she wants real human connection, not not
the ant.
plastic,
I don't want to be an ant. Yeah.
So I mean, it kind of seems like, all right, so you've got this cluster of scenes in the beginning about free will and individuality and personhood and freedom. And then you've got this cluster of scenes that is about like knowledge and whether anything's real. And some of that's like early in because they do all the like false awakenings.
There's definitely in the IDW guy that's talking about the evolutionary biology. That guy is 100% like in he's like having fucking podcast episodes with Jordan Peterson or something now.
Not Jordan Peterson, but I think like Brett Weinstein. That would be the sort of wing of the IDW.
His dream get is Jordan Peterson.
but also like again, let's place it in its correct time, right? Not only pre 9/11, but Tipper Gore of the PMRC was poised to be the first lady of the United States of America.
Friend of the show, Tipper Gore, that we talked about endlessly on every.
and who would have been the vice president? Further censor Joe Lieberman, right? And this was the good outcome of that election. I need to like this is like the alternate universe that things turned out better.
Yeah.
So when you think about the individualism and that side, remember that's what was going on at the time. That like there was a lot of like, as the Ramones so effectively called it, censor shit.
Yeah. Craziest thing, by the way, to me, learning more about the PMRC because that's like a super vague memory of like hearing about that for me is that a lot of what she was like so intent to censor, like you think, okay, like is this at least like gangster rap or whatever? There was some of that, right? But like a lot of what she was like the most upset about was fucking Prince.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like in pure like church lady fashion, which actually probably at least partially led to the Dana Carvey character. Frankly, is that if not Tipper Gore specifically, that mindset. It's wild. Like, and to think about like what people get away with, in television now, or even like presidential candidates get away with, right? Like Howard Dean was disqualified because he yelled weird like a wrestler at a rally with like tens of thousands of people.
Well, that's that they say now. There was actually a really great story I heard on NPR, which I can't find now, about like this actual hit ad that ran for like a week right before the election that seems to have like tanked his poll numbers.
Oh, well, he talked. I can speak personally to that because I volunteer on the campaign. He talked about this is classic Howard Dean pre like being a tool of big pharma. He talked about, hey, maybe we should break up all the media monopolies, like on like cable news, which like I was sitting there like I was like, whoa, what? Like, and I was like, can he say it was like a network moment almost because he was kind of like, and he was just sort of like, I don't think media consolidation is a good thing. We should probably, if I get lucky enough to be elected president, we'll probably look about like breaking that up, doing some regulation. And then it was like, and then next thing you know, What's what is
Yeah.
blasted out on
He's
every
gonna
media
go
outlet?
So actually, I
24/7, 365 with literally no context. Like if you take it with like the crowd noise, it like actually doesn't sound nearly so nuts, right? But like that was in no way, shape, or form anything other than like pure on network Ned Beatty speech. Get rid of this guy.
Yeah. I really do wonder, though. I was talking to Ryan Lake about this last night. Whether, like, I guess 2004 you probably couldn't have, but like the thing that like Trump makes you wonder is how long before 2016 could someone who cracked that code have just done that, right? That like, that just been like just not played along like with whatever the like campaign ended scandal would have been, and just like kind of like if Howard Dean had just like rolled his eyes every time somebody tried to bring it up, be like, yeah, whatever, right? Like it, because like Trump was able to shrug off like he did. I mean, there's so many things that like if like Mitt Romney or somebody had done them, it like like seems like they would have been like,
Mittens Romney, yes.
Campaign ended, career ended, right? Like that they like he spent like 2 weeks like beefing with some Gold Star parents over whether their kids sucked.
I had actually forgotten about that. What an incredible moment. Like what an incredible moment of just like countless meaningless beefs that just went on for forever and made celebrities of people that really had no business being celebrity based on nature being on the other side of it. Yeah. Any bitchy little beefs. Yeah.
I mean, it was fine. I mean, he told John McCain that he preferred Air Force pilots who didn't get captured. Like that was, like it's whatever.
Everybody kind of felt that right there. Like, yeah, like no.
I mean, low-key, I was like, he got you on that one.
Well, I think Obama.
And the people like, how dare you, sir? I'm like, I don't give a fuck about John McCain.
I think Obama in 2008 kind of started to crack that code for the first time. Because, more than anyone else, right? Like Hillary Clinton represents like, and it happened, twice to her, but like more than anyone else, Hillary Clinton seems to represent that like consensus. Like anything she says is kind of straight up like Democratic Party consensus. And Obama obviously didn't do the Trump thing. Like something could have easily ended his campaign, and he knew that. And like he was black. Like there was a lot of stuff that like, he had to be careful about because, you could throw whatever dog whistles you want at the guy. But like it did start to be like, oh, well, that was a dumb war. You voted for a dumb war. I didn't vote for a dumb war. Now, the reason he didn't vote for a dumb war is because he didn't, he wasn't elected to somewhere that could have voted for that at the time. But like, you don't say that. You know what I mean? Like, so he and like David Axelrod kind of managed to push through a lot of that. And I feel like that empowers somebody like Trump down the line who's like, no, this person kind of bucked, governed as a normal Democrat and fully got, the Democratic Party behind them. Like as soon as they took office, but kind of campaigned the first time on a different platform. And
I mean, Obama 100% would not have won the Democratic nomination against Hillary Clinton if not for the fact that he gave like an anti-Iraq war speech when he was like like a state senator or running for state senate. Like, he didn't have much at stake. It was very easy for him to do that. But like the fact that he was like on record as being against it, I mean, like that was 100% like the reason he won that nomination or had a chance to win it.
And Trump had nothing at stake. Like that's the thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, this guy had very little at stake. He gave the speech and then he got on stage and he kind of like,
Obama gave the speech. I mean, Trump, it's actually funny. Like you go back and watch like, the Trump stuff that they brought up as like evidence that he was against the war at the time. Yeah, and he's actually just expressing like this weird indifference to like whether the U.S. invades Iraq. He's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. I think it's an actual quote, right? Yeah.
He made this distinction, and this distinction is made. I guess a lot of people have talked about it. Like they talked about it a lot on Blowback. Like this smart war, dumb war distinction.
Oh,
right?
Obama
like,
did. Yeah.
Well, that was whole Carrie Edwards, best cheerleader in high school, by the way. Platform is that like, oh, this war was not executed correctly. We would.
I mean, like that's the thing. Like as much as like it showed how much hunger there was for that anti-war position, though, because like even though it was barely anti-war, like Obama's stated reason, like Forrest said, was just like that, like, oh, this is like detracting too much attention from our like unwinnable, like blood-soaked imperial war in Afghanistan. Like if we're going into this,
Yeah,
other
we could be
country-
profiting off of this war. Come on, yeah. Exactly.
We're taking our eye off the ball of the forever war in Afghanistan by starting one in Iraq, and you can't do that. But despite the fact that was such weak sauce, I mean, I think there was crazy hunger for that, and then I think 2016 showed that there was, and the Republicans too, and like they were willing to be even cheaper dates about it because like Trump had never actually even really opposed it, but the fact that he sort of acted like he was retroactively and he had just enough that he could kind of claim that he had, like the fact, which is crazy, right? Because like if you think about what Republicans were like in the 2000s, Trump said, like he told Jeb Bush on the campaign stage, the debate stage, Jeb was like, oh, my brother kept us safe. He's like, no, he didn't. 9/11 happened.
Yeah, and that's like
I finally
that puts everybody in the really unenviable position of being like, yeah, I guess get his ass.
Yeah, I will say the very
first
conversation
that kind of went through all of these moments. Like, I don't know if you listened to they were Chapo's producers at one time, I think.
James, right?
Yeah. So I finally listened through their podcast where they go through all of those different moments and like just insane how many fucking like weird, like you're cheerleading on Trump saying that or something. And it's like, yeah, get Jeb Bush. And it's like, yeah, but then Trump didn't really do shit.
Yeah. I mean, the first,
it's just a pox on both their houses.
Yeah.
Mindset, as far as I was like, I hope it is bloody and vicious. Yeah, exactly. Let there be blood.
Yeah, I will say the first conversation I ever had with Michael Brooks in like line at a Chipotle or something was
did you just hang out at like places to eat, and he's like, let me just try to see how many people I can meet that are gonna just end up being like big influences on the pod. Like I'm just gonna keep showing up at
let me get a wet burrito and some dry discourse.
Yeah, and in that conversation, right? I mean, we were actually coming from an event, but like in that conversation, he we both admitted to each other that like we thought he was a monster, but like we both really enjoyed Trump as an insult comic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like as a Borscht Belt comedian, he's fucking great. Absolutely. Yeah. Like you should have like a residency next to what's his name? What a country! Yakov Smirnoff in Missouri. That's what I was trying to think of.
You could have the Trump Blue Comedy Tour where they're like, you're a redneck if now we're calling up Donald Trump, and he's like Jeb Bush, lightweight.
And he does like the laugh lines and yeah. I mean, like, great. That's a great place for him. As far away from media as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about like the era that Waking Life came out. Like, so I just looked it up, and it came out like a month before 9/11. And in some ways, I think I know, right? That's like kind of. In some ways, there's a lot about the energy of the movie that's like kind of perfect for like, if you were like an anti-Bush person after that. But I will say one thing that's interesting about to me is like, so, all right, there's the free will and individuality scenes. There's the what's real and how do we know scenes. And then it sort of goes in as the movie gets closer to ending to the God and death scenes. Right. That like, it's like all about religion and, then
gets more existential near the back.
And I have something to play that this cues it up perfectly. I wanted to play a couple minutes of the original footage that they shot for it because I think it's really cool. But also the what's real and how do we know part of it gave me traumatic flashbacks to talking to Thaddeus Russell that one day. And when he's just like, well, how do you know that, how do you know that Trump didn't win the election? And then it was like one of the first times I talked on fucking Give Them an Argument and got into that fucking discourse for 15 minutes with Thaddeus Russell.
Oh, I'm so glad I've never been on with Thaddeus Russell.
But yeah. So
the Thaddeus is.
I mean, I like the guy. I just
he's by far my most problematic friend. But he does. But yeah, that is the thing that like drives me crazy in those conversations because it's like, well, hold on, how are you like super skeptical about everything, but then like the dumbest conspiracy theories, like where are the skeptical questions about them? Like what happened to that?
Well, they go without saying, right? Like it's like, oh well, where's the evidence those aren't true? And it's like, yeah, but every other fucking thing that like everybody else accepts, you're like, that's not true. Like, how do you know that's true? And it's like those things don't track. But here's a couple minutes of because I gotta go check on my dog for a second. So here's a couple minutes of original footage.
On this bridge, Lorca warned, life is not a dream. Beware, and beware, and beware. And so many think because then happened, now isn't. But didn't I mention the ongoing wow is happening right now as one realizes that one is a dream figure in another person's dream. That is self-awareness.
Allegedly, the story goes like this. Billy Wilder runs into Louis Malle, and Louis Malle just made his most expensive film, which has cost $2.5 million. And Billy Wilder asks him what the film is about. And Louis Malle says, well, it's sort of a dream within a dream. And Billy Wilder says, you just lost $2.5 million.
As the pattern gets more intricate and subtle, being swept along is no longer enough.
I said, if you're going to microwave that burrito, I want you to poke holes in the plastic wrapping because they explode, and I'm tired of cleaning up your little burrito doings. You dig me?
Kierkegaard's last words were, "Sweep me up."
I keep thinking that I'm waking up, but I'm still in a dream. It seems like it's going on forever. I can't get out of it, and I want to wake up for real. How do you really wake up?
If that's what you're thinking, I mean, you probably should, because someday you won't be able to. So just, but it's easy. Just wake up.
That's actually really cool. Like, as
that's unsettling. Like I've probably watched this movie like 200 times. So like I remember like all of the
every scene, right?
Yeah, it's like
it's crazy.
That's trippy.
I'm just
like,
glad they
like,
found an actor that can float like that.
Well, and like I said in the chat, like it looks like a cool public access show. Like, hey, what's that? Walter Wiggins. What's the actor's name? He was in Dazed and Confused too.
Yeah,
the main kid, the unnamed protagonist.
Yeah.
Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Does anybody care what I'm talking about? That's Wiley Wiggins is that guy's name. It's like Wiley Wiggins does Austin is what it looks like when it's just done like that, where it's like, oh, check it out, he's gonna visit the screw, but it's somehow crazier and more dreamlike with rotoscoping, which is again, unless you're Ralph Bakshi, right? There's not a lot of rotoscoping in your world.
No, like one of the things I liked about how the rotoscoping actually improved it was just how shitty the lighting was. For example, like
Oh, it's atrocious. Yeah.
yeah. You don't film a movie looking like
Not
that.
professional lighting, to put it bluntly. That's why I said public
the
access. Yeah.
Natural lighting, though, kind of picks up interestingly with the rotoscoping, because you have because sometimes I manipulate photos like that. You bring in an illustrator, and like one of the things that drove
For
me
your
crazy,
ID to give the Canadian border guards.
yes. But you get these weird artifacts in
Sir, this is a cartoon.
Anyway. Yes, exactly. Not a graphics program. But this movie had less of the artifacts than a Scanner Darkly did. Almost seemed like this was more advanced than Scanner Darkly, because they were able to like step things back so much at times, and I liked giving people different eyes and really playing with stuff. Which is weird because like yes, the effect scenes in the Scanner Darkly, when you actually see the Scanner Darkly in the film, was beautifully done. It looks great, but like I think this looked better than a Scanner Darkly in many ways.
Well, this is more of an experimental project, right? Like Scanner Darkly, he's just kind of going crazy, and you're kind of watching it through the eyes of someone whose brain is kind of decaying, and like as time goes on.
Dick. I mean, like the question. Sorry to interrupt, Forrest, but like the question with that book specifically is, how do you make Scanner Darkly? How do you do it? And like be at least like somewhat faithful to the source material.
Yeah.
And I think it works fantastically.
No, it's also
movie.
the only it's possible there are a couple of indie things that I've never seen and I'm not familiar with, but as far as I know, that's like out of the 100 movies that have been made based on Philip K. Dick movie, short stories or novels, that's the only one that actually feels like the original.
Yes.
There's a really amazing, and I listened to, I think, half of this for the stream we did on Give Them an Argument, but there's a Paul Giamatti book reading
which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Listen to the whole thing. Like that is great. That is like
friend of the show, Paul
best
Giamatti.
audiobook you'll ever find, hands down. Seriously, like his reading is just like elevates the book in a way that you won't believe, just because Paul Giamatti is pretty much playing the character.
The Bible, War and Peace, don't want to know about it. Let me know when Paul Giamatti reads it. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is kind of one of the first rotoscoping. I mean, besides like Lord of the Rings and like different projects like that.
The American Pop, that was like
American Pop is amazing.
Yeah.
Rotoscoping
experts Conan Neutron and J. Andy World over here. Sorry, Justice Andrew World.
I have an interesting couple minute clip of Richard Linklater talking about the process of this with the guy that actually was the artistic director. And
Thaddeus Q Rotoscope?
I thought you were going to say Thaddeus Russell. And I was thinking, how do you really know that? How do you really know it's rotoscoped? How do you really get that information down? So this is Richard.
I walked into that one, didn't I? Anyway,
talking for a minute about that part of the process
with an incredible haircut.
We just saw a little bit of a clip of it. Really amazing, and it's very artistic. Why did you choose to go with this technique?
Well, I first saw some shorts Bob had done. He'd been developing the software for a year, but it really struck me. It was like, it's real people, real gestures, real sound, the sound qualities, almost like documentary realism. And yet there's this whole other, your brain's trying to process, it's real, but
it's not real.
This other, it's like a moving painting. So I had this idea for this movie I've been thinking about for years and years. And when I saw what Bob was doing, it made me think, okay, that's the way this film would work. It wouldn't work live action, but it worked.
Did you shoot it as a live? I mean, you obviously have to shoot it. Did you shoot it the same way you would have shot it if it were live action?
Pretty much. It was quicker, but we shot it. Yeah,
because you could fix stuff. If you
rehearsed, shot, and edited, locked picture like a real movie.
You edit before you rotoscope.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. So it's done.
It took so much time to animate.
Extra animation.
Yeah, you're not going to animate 20 hours and then edit your movie. You had it. All the frames were edited, and then we started with the animation.
So Bob, tell me about this. Is using a technique called rotoscoping. What exactly is happening?
Yeah, we've been calling it interpolated rotoscoping, because rotoscoping has been around since the beginning of animation, and that's just essentially tracing on top of film frames.
Right.
We're doing that, but their software helps helps the artist a little bit in that you don't have to draw every line of every frame.
You have to do 24 frames a second
Right.
for the whole
Computer
movie.
can make up some of the in-betweening.
Right. Why? What was this about, Richard, about the story that you thought it fit better to do it this way?
Well, the film's arguably like in another realm of reality. It's kind of a realistic depiction probably of an unreality. And I thought film's a very realistic medium. It's photorealism. And the film in my head didn't really work that way. But with the animation, your brain sort of works overtime processing it in that way. That's very interesting.
Were you struggling with producing this movie? I mean, were you saying, how am I going to make this in film?
I just wasn't even attempting it because it didn't work.
Couldn't happen.
I was, making other movies and stuff, but I would known Bob for a while, and his producing partner, Tommy, I'd been working with for years and years. So it wasn't like a big commercial undertaking. It was like this little art project, we started doing. We didn't really, it wasn't conventionally scripted or but it was great. It was a great forum for a lot of people, cast, and ultimately these 30 visual artists to express
Well, that's what I
themselves.
like about it. It's not the same style all the way through.
Yeah.
Well, who are these artists?
They're mostly local artists from Austin, painters, not really computer animators.
They're not animators.
No, because you're getting all the motion off the video. What's really important is just a strong visual style. And people, I picked people that just did their own art and would definitely have their own sort of visual voice.
So every 5 minutes, the film style changes completely?
Well, it's kind of scene by scene. Like the movie's a series of encounters, a lot of different people. So I love the idea that each person would be drawn, so they'd be very different than the person before them and the person after them. I mean, most animated films feel like there's one designer.
Right.
This is like everything's different,
and yet it's a cohesive story. I mean, it's not episodic. Let's take a little bit of a look at one of the clips from the movie to get an idea of what's going on.
I love the fact that he brought up the in-between, which is something that people need to understand with animation. An animator will only draw like the extreme action. So like, me reeling back for a punch, me throwing the punch and connecting. And then an in-between
Yo, Andy, go off for this. I gotta go run and take Audrey out because she's barking.
We'll sit there and draw the in-between.
Move myself for a second.
However many frames that needs to make up for that movement. Right. So Jack Kirby, for example, was hired as an in-between artist on the old Popeye cartoons before he started doing comics. So it's an old tradition. But the fact that the computer's doing kind of the in-between work is kind of fascinating. That they brought up.
Well, I was thinking about the fact that it also visually kind of plays like a mixtape or something, right? Like in the same way that I'm trying to think of. Heavy metal, I guess, kind of does that a little bit with like the different styles. But much more dumbly, I think. and I say that as someone with peace and love, but heavy metal is pretty dumb.
It is.
And I think that it's even more
bets.
Right. It's more thought of as more of these liquid television's perfect example, right? Or Cake, or any of the more recent derivations and permutations of that, where it's basically like a series of shorts, and so you have this confluence of different styles and things along those lines. But I think it works really well in this, again, because of the subject matter, that it is like different styles in there. I think that actually helps.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the strengths of this movie is the way they shift to a little more flat colors or whatever. Like I really appreciate that, because like I said, I felt there's something almost kind of cheating with A Scanner Darkly, I felt. And it's weird because even though this movie came out years beforehand, it almost feels more advanced in that way, that they have the different artists working on it. And I get that you don't necessarily want that with A Scanner Darkly, where it's a continuing narrative.
I think that would be jarring in Scanner Darkly, but I see where you'd feel that way. Ben, how do you feel about all that? Sorry.
I mean, I don't like. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like I
see it for the Kierkegaard, and
all our decisions are made by Justice Andrew World. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, my level of watching this visually is oh, that looks cool.
Well, you said you've seen it a lot, and I didn't realize you're going to be able to quote it verbatim from memory, which I was like, wow, he has seen this a lot. Which I've seen a lot too, but
I have seen it a ton. Probably over the course of 15 years or something. But but yeah, no, I mean, again, it's definitely, the you know, I mean, definitely the way the rotoscoping is done and everything does like give it this like nice, dreamy, weird, you know, quality. But like, you know, that sentence is about the level of commentary that I could give on that, right? I mean, like, I think that like all the stuff they talk about, right? You know, like I could say stuff about that, you know, everything that the like the sort of as like a story and as and everything. But like, I don't know. It's like the it's like the like I you know, like I really, you know, I really like whiskey, but like when I try to like be like I don't know, it's like, you know.
Well, it's like me talking about architecture, right? Where it's like, I love it. I'm not an expert on it, but I love what I love on it. Yeah,
You know,
I get that.
You know, like, and that's so yeah, I definitely, it's like, I don't know, it tastes, you know, good.
You don't need, it tastes good. Dash Ben Burgess. That's a review.
Well, it's like this would be the same thing. I don't know. It looks cool.
Well, so let's why don't
very
we
disconcerting live action, but looks cool in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll stand by the fact that I think it looks like a cool public access show that way, but that's I mean that as a compliment and an insult at the same time.
Sure.
Can we talk about the visuals specifically in regards to the extended play of the ant scene, like that he's going down into in the subway and like, you know, the girl stops him and like, you know, does the whole spiel about it, like not being an ant with like, you know, antenna down, et cetera, and that turns to the extended scene, which is then revealed yet again to be a dream, where you gradually start to see like the visuals get a little crazier, like her hair is kind of like going all cattywampus, as my grandpa used to say, and it's starting to look a little crazy. I think that for me, on repeated viewings, I kind of appreciate small things like that, like a little more, and I noticed them, and I didn't realize at the time how hard the animators had worked to sort of support the scene in that way and support what was being discussed and the fluidity of that.
Oh yeah, like the guy talked about the light switch. If you watch his shirt, he has a light switch, light bulb pin on his jacket, and it lights up through the scene. You know, it gets brighter and darker as the scene's going on.
Yeah, that stuff's great, and that stuff, you know, rewards multiple viewings and things along those lines. But I mean, from a standpoint of like what works in this movie and still works now, and like what like is prescient and what kind of like seems like outmoded and an artifact of its time. I think actually in the social media age, that scene actually kind of hits harder, right? Like, you know, everyone just like doom scrolling away for like the latest.
But I mean, that kind of wasn't better. The alienation was part of that zeitgeist of that era. Like there was an optimism to it, but there was still that alienation, which I think we all kind of felt.
Then. There was at least diminishing in the distance, but it was hope nonetheless. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, you know, listening to you know, somewhat pop radio and thinking like, oh, there's potential here. Like is Mambo No. 5 the greatest song I ever heard? No, but like, you know. Will we get?
That's the one, huh? That's yours. Okay.
I don't know. Don't Steal My Sunshine. I don't know. I was listening to weird ass stuff at the time, but
you amaze me, Justice Andrew World. That's
yes, but you know, just like I remember, like that the music being so kind of eclectic and just like blending of everything. It was interesting. It wasn't there yet for me, but I was just like, this is what I think the future of music is. And then, you know, we had the complete, you know,
nope. And by the way, speaking of someone that was like actively touring and making music at that time, I can assure you that it was nothing like that on the ground at all. But you know, hey, but one can live in hope.
Yeah, I was also like seeing like independent acts at the same time. So like you know, Da Vinci's Notebook, which was this weird ass a cappella band. They were getting like major labels were recording them at the time, so like there was something in the air, even though, you know, never quite came to anything, but there was something in the air.
All right, Forrest, over to you.
There was something in the air.
There's something in the air that night.
Oh Lord. Yeah, So I don't know where the conversation went when I was.
Well, we're talking more about rotoscoping, talk about the visuals. We talked about. I specifically brought up the visuals in terms of the ant scene with the woman. That kind of gradually the visuals kind of I felt personally kind of supported the mood and the what was being discussed and things along those lines. And then it turned into whatever the hell Andy was talking about.
Yeah, Mambo number 5.
Mambo number 5, apparently, like surprising to everybody except for him.
Yeah, so it gets kind of subsumed from there into the conversation about death, and I guess that's kind of the last.
It's kind of the joiner piece, pretty much.
Yeah,
right?
death and God, right? Like those the two things that the last part is
death, God, and taxes.
Yeah, is about, right? I mean, like that's the and like this, I guess, especially at the end with the like pinball machine like scene where they're talking about Valis, which by the way, like has always, it's clearly it's clearly not happening, but for the last 16 years since Scanner Darkly came out, I've been really wanting Linklater to make a Valis movie like in the same style. I actually think that'd be amazing, but
I would be on board for that and would support that Kickstarter. I was just looking to see if I could pull the book out in time, but I'm not. The bookcase is too big. I'm not gonna be able to.
I mean, it's really interesting. Also, the next movie he did after Waking Life was School of Rock, which I always forget is a Linklater movie, but is like one of the strangest music movies of all time because it's literally just Jack Black being a music teacher. Like, you know what I mean? Like they don't up his game in terms of like the music he plays.
But well, exactly. There's the character development. Well, that's a whole separate discussion. I'm not going to get into that. But like, it is a plotted movie. Which when he talked about in that clip, Forrest, you played, he talked about it. Like the sort of like it being like an unconventional, non-plotted movie. I think the vast majority of his filmography at this point is like the Before series, as brilliant as it is. It's like Boyhood's perfect example. All of his movies, like for the most part, at least the ones that people think of when they think of his movies, all are a little unorthodox in that way. And I think the examples I could think of that were not those were Dazed and Confused and School of Rock. Those are the two I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, Dazed and Confused is interesting, right? Because it's not a conventionally plotted movie either, really. I mean, it kind of follows a whole bunch of different people going to the same high school and they all end up at the same party. But like you're kind of following it through a bunch of different plot, like a bunch of different narratives. Like,
but I mean, it's closer to American Graffiti, though. It's like there's a tradition of that.
No, there is a tradition, but it's also like I think that what he's doing with Dazed and Confused is a little bit different. Like Dazed and Confused is almost like the missing link between American Graffiti and Waking Life. Like that there are like conversations in Dazed and Confused that like could have been Waking Life scenes. The whole thing about the Martha Washington would like get a big bowl together for for George when he got home, and like all of
weird
that.
It's a great scene.
Have you seen Slacker, Ben?
No.
Okay, because Slacker is very much like Waking Life.
Some people uncharitably say that Slacker is Waking Life without rotoscoping. I don't feel that that's true.
No, I think Slacker is more of a portrait of Austin, which is a very different film. But like it also one of my big complaints about Slacker was the fact that it was like, oh, he just read a philosophy book, was like really excited about it and wanted to tell people. And everybody in the movie kind of speaks.
Ben's like, "What's wrong with that?"
That sounds good to me. I'd watch that.
Yeah, copy's still available. Yeah.
No, and like I don't think it worked for that as a movie to paint a picture of Austin. Whereas in this one, where people are speaking in the same voice, kind of lends to the whole dream effect of like the whole fact that this is probably all just a dream because he's dead, was killed in the car accident at the beginning of the movie, and doesn't quite realize it yet.
Yeah, but he also gets the don't look or whatever, look over there napkin or whatever that he looks at. Like you could assume that might have been part of his dream too. Like it's kind of
like maybe that was like a sort of like that was like the first dream, which was the one that was like just like a slightly like mixed up surreal version of the accident that killed him. But yeah, so this is set in the land of the dead rather than Austin. Insert your own joke here. But
you can't insert a joke. You just have to make sure that the burrito doesn't get
the
microwave.
Otherwise, the guy that clearly does not own a boat car will get mad at you.
Yeah, exactly. So the end, the end of the movie, is the guy at the pinball machine is. I mean, it's gotten more and more obvious. The protagonist is unable, like in the ant scene, like he's unable to remember what his name is.
Yeah.
And then at the end, the guy at the pinball machine is telling him about Philip K. Dick and Valis, which is part of the reason probably I connected so much to this movie, because like I love that novel. Like
Same.
Yeah.
That was one of the best things about being from Oakland is like, and being so into Philip K. Dick. I walk past Children's Playland like all the time. I'm like, that's from, I would like name like the books that were referenced. Like it's the only, we used to practice like in North Berkeley. And I was like, Philip K. Dick used to live right over there. And everyone's like, we don't care. And I'm like, this is a big deal. You don't understand what a big deal it is. Yeah.
And in a similar way, I think they have monuments to Linklater throughout Austin. Like I went when I went to Austin back in June, the first place I really stopped at to get food had a giant Slacker, the girl from Slacker, like that was in Butthole Surfers. It had a giant mural of her just in the middle of fucking Austin, and I was like, oh shit, I should watch Slacker now. And then, months later I did. But
and you did. What a true success story with no drawbacks. Additionally, I would say that remember, Richard Linklater made those awesome anti-Ted Cruz ads, right? So talk about a lot of people like to talk. Yeah, Ted. Like, that character. I guess the guy is in Bernie, which is one of the only ones I've not seen from Richard Linklater. But like,
there's a really long time ago. I forgot that was a Linklater movie too. That was another one.
Yeah,
Black Work is what I forget. I think that he directed.
But like as ads, they're super effective just by nature. Well, obviously not effective enough, but by nature of the fact that like to a certain type of Texan, like he's like a local hero made good, right? So it's like, and he wasn't a dude that was like endorsing in every election and like and being involved with it. I mean, to the point of like criticism. Honestly, like for many years, like saying like, oh, he's a sideline sitter or he doesn't care or whatever. And then like the fact that's like, again, Beto had a lot of problems, but like, good ads in his favor against Ted Cruz were not one of them, because those were freaking hilarious. And I say that I was not a fan of Ted Cruz before he was ever in the Senate. So like, I've been liking that guy for a long time.
My Beto theory is just that he doesn't want to get a job at this point, so he just keeps running for shit in Texas because he's like, listen, it's either this or like I get a job somewhere, and I can't.
He's got to pay off that campaign debt, But if he keeps running for office, he can't. So it's a big scam.
Yeah, but I can't jump on a table. I can't jump on a table at an office. Like I have to jump on a table, and I can't do it at an office, and it fucking sucks. So let me just keep running.
I keep getting kicked out of McDonald's, so I have to.
I have to admit,
Ben,
like,
you have the
I just wrote this thing for the Daily Beast, probably coming out this week, where like looking back at the 2020 election. And I think other than like the sort of like super marginal people, like I think like almost every single candidate is name checked in that article. And as we were talking just now, it's like, oh fuck, I forgot the Beto existed.
Well, yeah, and here's what's messed up. He's running against.
I mean, pretty much you can call him at that point. Like they kind of blended. No, they blended into like a single white guy organism to bash Bernie at some point.
No, I don't want to get into it, but no. But like that guy is literally running against the Republican governor of Texas right now.
Awesome.
But which is
somewhere in Texas at this very moment, he's standing at a table. He loves.
Let me stand on this table and explain to you the power grid.
Well, to me, that's a once more into the breach kind of thing, and that actually some of the shine that got like taken off when he got bad advice and listened to a bunch of people that said he should run for president. That makes me kind of like be more in his favor, because I mean, let's charitably say that's going to be an uphill battle.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like, is he a goober? Yes. Like, would it be 100,000 times better than that horrible, nefarious character? Of course he would.
Well, that was the thing, because like when he was running for Senate in Texas, like everybody, like like if you were like like, yeah, I mean, all the like, I had like somewhat warm feelings about Beto O'Rourke at that point. It's like, fucking everybody did, because it's like, okay, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
get
like,
him, get his ass.
yeah, he's not great,
there's
but I
something
mean,
to
like,
be
I'll take
said.
it, like,
There were
and
a couple weird warning signs, like when he was really, really, really into TPP. And it was like, oh, maybe this trade deal is not like what you want to emphasize in the Senate campaign.
No, I mean, like Beto is bad, but like when he was,
Well, I didn't know he was bad at that point, right? Because he kind of was pro Medicare for all for a short amount of time. Like he seemed like he was. He said he was.
Okay, hold on. It's not about checking off issues, right? We're talking about like
it's those warm and fuzzy feelings you got whenever Bill de Blasio was running in 2014. Like you're just like, okay, this guy might be, this guy seems pretty good, better than Bloomberg.
Yeah, which is funny because I actually remember during that election.
Better than Bloomberg. Put it on my tombstone. Yeah.
Blasio never had a Ghislaine Maxwell picture, so.
During the when de Blasio was like gearing up to run the first time, I remember I was at I was in Cuba. I was at a conference at the University of Havana, and so it's like standing around with like all these people who are like, I don't know, I mean, I would assume communists, and everybody's like, oh yeah, de Blasio, it's like, let's see how it goes, that could be good, like that sounds like everybody's like giving him all this credit, that he hadn't really done anything to earn, but it's like just because of like what Ed is talking about.
But it has to do with like
I still have very warm feelings towards de Blasio because Eric Adams is just the worst person I've ever seen. Like not the worst politician I've ever seen. Eric Adams is the worst person I've ever seen. But go ahead, Conan. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I think there's a certain suspension of critical thinking that happens when you have a villain that is odious as say Ted Cruz is or something along those lines, that you're just like, you don't want to know like anything that's gonna you want to go get him. Get his ass. Get his ass. Like, I don't care if you're like someone that agrees with me on everything. I don't care if you're going to be in there and I'm going to like spend my entire time like treating you like Kristen Cinema, right? Doesn't matter. Get his ass. And there's something to be said for that. And I think the modern left could actually do itself a lot more favors by adopting that attitude and realizing, temporary alliances are just that, temporary alliances. But you don't have to speak everything that comes into your mind also.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I mean,
shocking,
Bernie
right?
Sanders read this book in 2016.
Right. Well, but like, yeah, is like whatever. I could do a whole podcast about Beto O'Rourke. I think he's a fascinating character.
Yeah,
and it pisses me off. He's the first person in American politics that comes from punk rock, and it's that guy. And that's
hackers.
Wait. What about Martin O'Malley? There's kind of a punk Irish thing.
Nah.
No, there isn't.
I mean, no.
But he does come from The Wire.
He wasn't, The Wire.
I mean, Martin O'Malley was.
I want to jump into the letterbox one-liners. The last thing I'll say though is the reason that I brought up the Medicare for All thing with Beto is that when he ran against Ted Cruz, he kind of took this like very progressive stance towards things, right? He was like, "Oh, I'm a big fan of Medicare for All. I'm like this, former hacker guy. I'm interesting." But then there were just these little cracks. Like he just got really aggressive about TPP, and it's like that's not.
It was.
Is that your issue? Is that your issue? Is it the issue you want to?
That's your thing, yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, before you do the letterbox one-liners, I was just going to say, like, I think that the big thing is like, so there's all this stuff about, religious mysticism, the holy moment,
Joseph Campbell, which is
Kierkegaard, Sweep Me Up, all this stuff, leading up to the Valis scene, and which is all about. Saying yes to God and like, I want to be with you and, heaven and the protagonist, that's kind of his opportunity to like do it. Right. I mean, like the whole movie, he's essentially been in not purgatory because he's not being tortured, but he's like in the, he's in like the Bardo, right? Like he, it's like, wandering around like on the edge, and he could be, what do we got?
Is it the Jello Bafira for mayor? Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I love that guy. But he has that one.
That one's not showing up.
See it.
Yeah, there's too much shine. Okay. We can't read it.
Yeah, Jello Biafra way better than what his band became.
Oh yeah, post Jello Biafra, Dead Kennedys is pointless. But
Oh my god! But like, have you seen their posts? Like, they're just like, "I'm still with her" kind of stuff.
No.
Wasn't there a pro
I had to
Mitt
cover this
Romney?
in Platonic. I don't want to get into it here, but East Bay Ray. But like, yeah,
Wasn't there a pro Mitt Romney Dead Kennedys post at one point?
They just
I hope so.
It's
That's amazing.
East Bay, first of all, it's East Bay Ray. Secondly, he's just doing the same stuff that anybody that watches MSNBC every day does. But yeah, these are two replica pins. It says the man for the office, Jello, is the cool like one, and then a public official is only as good as his record. Vote Jello Biafra, San Francisco mayor, 1979. But yeah, that's the one that doesn't show up on there.
I remember.
But I knocked down half my set dressing here to show you guys that.
I saw Jello Biafra speak in Kalamazoo, Michigan, in 2004, and it was like this crazy, like uninterrupted, like 3-hour rant, that he just did. And the detail that's always most stuck in my head is he said that there was a point where I think this didn't happen. I think he was outvoted on this within the band, but like Oliver North had claimed that there was a Libyan hit squad that had infiltrated the United States to assassinate President Reagan, and they'd released this composite like sketch of the Libyan death squad. And so he wanted to make that their next album cover and have the album be called Go Team Go.
Fantastic. Okay. Since Jello Biafra was invoked, there's two things I want to say. First of all, Jello Biafra, good dude. He spent a lot of time being in the news for fighting for expression and against the censorships, again, as mentioned, including Chipper Gore. He also still goes out to shows. He's seen my bands before. He's come out, but I had the unique experience at a punk rock show of breaking news to Jello Biafra about the Mark Foley scandal, because he's not an extremely online guy. So I got to describe all of that to Jello Biafra. I'm like, wow.
Nice.
The high school me would be pretty stoked about this, and the adult me is still pretty stoked about it. I also almost was the general manager of Alternative Tentacles, but that's a story for a different day. We're doing letterbox reviews right now. Forrest, play the theme we don't have.
Wait, Ben, are you done with what you wanted to say about?
All I was going to say is that like that's kind of like that's the sort of moment of decision at the end of the movie. But then what he decides is that he's going to continue to keep on wandering around the wilderness because he's not quite prepared to admit that he's dead yet. And so,
right.
As the movie ends, he's still there. So in a sense, like that is extremely plotless because he had a chance to like actually break out of that. He does it, but I think somehow it still works.
And there's, it's funny that it's Linklater that's kind of the person trying to explain this to him, and he's like, yeah, if you can wake up, you can try, but here's a story about Philip K. Dick, and all the stuff I saw, like I'm pretty much dead, like just explaining to you that fact, like, and it ends up being this, I don't know, but yeah, I think that it's kind of telling that it's Linklater that kind of plays that character and kind of tries to explain things to him, and he's still kind of unable to he's actually unable to like even recognize the fact that he is dead or that might be a thing, and he's still trying to wake up. And it's kind of like an awkward, like, that whole story happens and he's like not really paying attention to it, and he's like, yo, so you think I could still wake up? And he's like, I don't know, try, maybe. I don't think, maybe, like
cook your burrito, see if I care.
Absolutely. All right, are we doing it now?
Yeah.
Happening?
All right.
Okay.
Well, you said a couple minutes, so I was preparing to try to vamp, but I'm glad I don't have to. Letterboxd one-liners.
Yeah, I was gonna say to like when you get food delivery and it's like 4 degrees outside, and they say they left the food outside, chances are you should probably get it sooner rather than later. So anyway, Letterboxd, place for film, bottom up democracy, the only social media site that personally I like. It is a place where everyone gets their say, not just the Siskel's and Eberts and such. Everybody gets to opine. They get to crack wise. They get to have thoughtful discussions at times. And the bit is every movie that we cover on this show, I go through and pull the ones that I think are the most interesting, baffling, oblique, hilarious, usually in the one-liner format. So that's what this is. The Letterboxd one-liners for Waking Life. Forrest, take us away. I kind of want to give this 5 stars for how good of a watch this was. But on the other hand is just NPC dialogue for an hour and 40 minutes.
Nailed it.
It really just is. Like, especially once he realizes he's dreaming, it gets so much worse because he's like you're in my dream. You're not like a real person. What's that like? And then they can't answer because of course they can't. It's like an NPC.
Yeah, I don't have programming for that line, sir. Yeah, exactly. This should have been called Ending Life because that's what I wanted to do throughout this entire movie.
Oh, 1 star.
I do not agree, but respect the game. That's a great review.
They were dead the whole time anyway.
What a trip, dog.
Yeah. I mean, that is probably the ideal Waking Life viewer.
Who's too high to punctuate.
And you got to read it just like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, what a trip, dog.
There's that moment. There's that moment where he's like, I've been in this forever and I can't get out of it. And I was thinking about like all the times I've been on acid and it's been like 18 hours into it. And the acid is just like someone that's gotten it from a connect that's too strong. And you're just sitting there and you're like, no, this is 18 hours. I don't know if I'm ever going to have a normal like existence again. I might be schizophrenic now. Like, I want to get out of this.
That's how I felt on the Murder Night Extravaganza wrap up.
That's how I feel right now doing the Murder Night Extravaganza wrap up,
which is still happening in an alternate universe.
Yes.
If my dreams were anything like this, I would do whatever it takes to never sleep again. Plum Lao there.
I would love if my dreams were like this.
Yeah. I again disagree. Exactly. Podcast about lucid dreaming, but you're tripping balls the entire time.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Joe Rogan experience.
Beneath your chair is a tab of acid. Please take it and experience this podcast like nobody else has before.
The idea is to remain in a state of departure while always arriving.
He's such a upbeat, pretentious douche in that scene too. He's like, the idea is to remain, like he goes through that whole speech and no one else is talking in the car, and he's like, I might not understand it, I might not agree with it, but I let it happen. I'm a passive observer. And it's like, yeah, I bet you are, buddy.
He's real into talking about it. Yeah. WTF, the animation is so cool and the topics are wild. 5 stars by Lil.
You know what? If I saw that review and I'd never seen, I would watch it based on that and be like, all right.
Yeah. Everything in that sentence is true. Fans of Dreaming will love this one.
Sure.
Also,
I like, but only 4.5 stars because
only 4.5 stars.
You're not gonna like it.
Exactly. That half star that's docked is for the people that hate dreaming.
By the way, the quote that we didn't touch on in this is when they see the guy on the fucking telephone pole and he says, oh well, like he's like what a stupid bastard, and he's like, well, he's all action, no theory. We're all theory and no action.
That is a good line, actually.
Yeah,
I forgot about that one until you mentioned it.
That's everybody on Twitter.
Salsa dancing with my confusion. Micah McFadden, which I love that, and that's a throwaway line in a much longer soliloquy on the bridge. What are they on? What's going on? But
drugs. They're on drugs.
It makes it so much funnier seeing it without the rotoscoping for that specific scene though, because it's just some like creepy guy on a bridge.
It looks so mundane. It looks so staggeringly mundane. Like there's nothing extraordinary about it. Yeah.
The wow here right now.
His hair isn't doing anything. It's boring.
Yeah. Boo. Flicks light switch just to be safe.
No, I feel that. I really, after watching this movie, I actually did do that. I was like, all right, let's make sure.
So those are the Letterboxd one-liners for Waking Life. Letterboxd, a place for film. Please follow the show, which is Forrest, Movie Night Extravaganza. I am, of course, Conan Neutron. You can follow me as well. Justice Andrew World. Comment if you found a tab of acid on any one of his reviews. He's available as well. Ben Burgis is too cool for school and will not join Letterboxd.
He's on Letterboxd.
Oh, you are on there now. Yeah. Ben Burgis has like 4 followers, so go follow him. He needs more than anyone.
In one review.
I have one because I've only watched one movie since I started Letterboxd.
You're still watching American President?
Yeah, well, he's absolutely killing us in YouTube subs. So there you go.
Well, whatever. So folks that are on fans of the show that are on Letterboxd, follow Ben. It's just Ben Burgis, right? Like I didn't look. And make him feel loved so that he sticks around on the site and continues to provide his analysis for free to you. Andy, you got the thing.
Yeah,
right?
if you're watching right now on Twitch, make sure that you subscribe. And if you are thinking about subscribing but don't have the money, but yet you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, subscribe. I just said subscribe way too much. I'm just gonna say that right now. I need to work on this bit. Yeah, that actually really does help out the channel. So please subscribe. If you are watching this later on YouTube, also like, subscribe, do all the good YouTube stuff. Leave a comment, especially if you find that tab vast.
Hit the bell. You got to tell them to hit the bell.
Yeah, hit the bell, get the updates.
Get that silver ring, baby. Let's go.
Yes, and the most important thing too, we have a Patreon. Patreon is there to get a really cool stuff like the bonus episode for Monday's appearance on This Is Revolution. No, wait, next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday's, next Wednesday's appearance with you and me on This Is Revolution and Varn. That should be fun.
Yes. I will be seeing my friend Dave Pajo playing Gang of Four, so I regret nothing.
No, you should not regret anything with that.
I do not.
Yeah,
and also there's a bunch of other stuff that's going to be on there. We haven't announced all of it, but it's worth checking out. It's worth checking out, people. Go push the button, hit the Patreon.
I got the papers. The papers are great.
Go pick up some supplements while you're at it. They don't want you to know.
They make you a real man. They give you titties.
They give you titties. You're selling HRT to people on the stream.
Was that the rest of the bit, Andy?
I don't know.
My frogs are all good now.
That came out of my mouth.
Turning the frogs gay. Sorry, it's.
Yeah. No, Andy's turning the frogs trans.
That's right.
You get some titties. But this is the final thoughts portion of things. If anyone else,
by the way, you're right, Andy. You do need to tighten that up. But we appreciate you nonetheless. Thank you.
If you see other podcasts like Kenzo Shibata trying to say final thoughts, that's our bit. So, call him out on it. Ben, do you have final thoughts? Anything you want to add to this movie or that you didn't get to? Or, I'm sure there is, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Read Valis. It's a good book.
All right.
That's it? Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Conan?
Keeping it succinct. All right. Well, I'm not going to keep it succinct, but that's okay. It's a study in contrast, really. I think this is a great film. I like Linklater a lot, and I actually think it's actually a pretty good entry point. Like if you can hang with Wake in Life, you will probably dig his other stuff. And I had the astounding revelation too, again, of the before movies. With Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, the Jesse and Celine, who they have a really awesome cameo, I guess you would call it, crossover, the Linklater expanded universe in this film. I absolutely adore those movies. And before I was like, huh, who are these people? Why do I care? Like more than anything else. But then I was like, like in the way that the meme, the Tarantino movie with the Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. Thank you. I was totally doing that. Yeah, exactly. That was me. That was me on the couch, being stoked at Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke being on screen as their characters from Before Sunrise. And there's so many ideas that are thrown out here. I mean, it's easy to make a meme of that or make light of it. I actually love movies that kind of throw that at you and sort of make you think. Shocking. I'm into a movie about critical thinking, right? But I think this is a very well done film that sits nicely in the pantheon of those styles of movies while also kind of being pretty unique as well. I can't really think of any movie that's quite like this. I think movies kind of emulated or nearby or neighbors adjacent to it. Waking Life is a good movie, and it's not perfect. It is not perfect, but really when it comes down to it, I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect because it's asking the questions. They're just asking questions, people. And the fact that people fix
do your
it
own research.
Do your own research. And lastly, no, man, I don't have a boat car.
Oh, that's Conan Neutron. He's the guy with the boat car. Andy, Free Kitty Frog World.
I have to say, like, this was a much more enjoyable film than Slacker. It embraced all the problems I had with Slacker, like everything that I think
I didn't hear any
work.
Kennedy assassination rhetoric, so I don't agree.
No, but see, that scene worked. No, but like the things that didn't work in Slacker, he actually leaned into it in this movie and made it work. It's kind of interesting because
I
was
think that's a good point.
Critical of Slacker when we did our episode, and I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's just, you know, it's an imperfect, you know, ephemera of a point in time, and this is like basically like, you know, it's 10 years after Slacker. He, you know, Linklater as a filmmaker, as a human, has like evolved to this point where he's doing a much stronger piece where he can do like, oh, I just read this really cool philosophy book, I want to tell you all about it thing, but make it actually work as in regards of whatever story there happens to be. And I mean, there is something loosely of a story, like you don't necessarily tell what it is until you get to the end, but you know, it's there.
I mean, he has a beginning and an ending that kind of loops together. So I mean,
yeah, you know. It's a little more focused than what Slacker was. And like I said, I'm not, you know, I didn't love Slacker, but I'm not saying it's a bad film or anything like that either. So
we got a full 2 hours of Matthew Film Guy explaining to us why he thinks it's like one of the best films he's ever seen.
And I kind of disagreed with some of it, but you know.
Well, yeah, we love Matthew, but
yeah.
By the way, I wanted to say
peace and love.
he has this big letterbox following. The other person that has a big letterbox following is Matt Chrisman, and like he does a lot of the snappy ones. He and Nando do a lot of the snappy ones, but I expected that his Black Swan one would be snappy, and it was like an essay. Like it was just literally like, I think it was like 1,000 words on like the different parts of Black Swan, and I was like, oh fuck, this is not what I don't want to read all this.
I mean, I tend to do, I won't call it long form. I tend to do mid form myself. So I'm not going to play or hate on that. Like, but I get it. Yeah.
He's one of those, like, you know, I mean, he does fast, snappy reviews on there a lot. And it's like when someone gets very sincere about the movies that they just watched, it's like, oh fuck.
Well, he was also on that site before there was a Chapo Trap House.
Yeah.
So, and some of those reviews are from that. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. So I think I misinterpreted the snappiness level is appropriate for final thought. So I guess I'll just say this, that I mean, I guess one of the things that makes Waking Life unique to me is that more so, I think, in a way than like, you know, other movies that I've seen a million times, and you know that I'll get excited, you know, about watching a millionth and once time, you know, like you know, of which, you know, there are many such cases, you know, like, and it's all the shit that you'd expect from somebody who's like, you know, whatever, like my age and background and all of that stuff, you know, that you know, I Tarantino, Scorsese, like shit like that, right? You know, like I'm very predictable, but but I think more than any of that stuff, Waking Life, like, even though I've seen it an ungodly number of times, like it always feels like a different kind of experience than watching just about any other movie, you know? So it's like kind of like turn the lights off and watch Waking Life. That's like a little, I don't know. It's like I'm like microdosing something, you know, by watching it. It's just a very particular vibe, right? So like I had, you know, like, so like when we were talking about this, you know, I got, it's like, oh shit, I get to, you know, I'm a good excuse to watch Waking Life again, you know, like that's, you know, that'll be fun. Because
meanwhile,
like,
American president sitting there with only the first 20 minutes watched, just like being like, bye, not me.
Yeah, I mean, like I think the atmosphere is so unique. I think that the fact that it is sort of plotless, but in a way that really works, so it just like it is in a very different category for me than watching than watching just about anything else. Like even by even other Linklater movies, even Scanner Darkly, right? Which is like in a lot of ways, right? It's like very the animation style, the fact, the Philip K. Dick element, like that's like well, actually, I guess the scene in Scanner Darkly I always like the most is the most Waking Life one, which is the Frick trying to kill himself, and is the being from between dimensions comes to with all the eyeballs comes to read him a list of his sins, and 1,000 later is the God to the 8th grade, the year Frick discovered masturbation. But like even as similar as like those movies are in some ways, I mean, I think just because like that's still like a traditional movie with a plot, it's like a very different experience for me than watching this.
Yeah, and it feels like he kind of referenced, I mean, Philip K. Dick to be like almost like I want to make a movie based on one of his books like later on, and then Scanner Darkly kind of fulfills that role. So I feel like Linklater's filmography kind of has these lines that kind of go through it, and like there's a line directly between Slacker and Waking Life, and there's a line directly between Waking Life and Scanner Darkly, which is fascinating. But my final thoughts are the powers that be want us to be passive observers, and they haven't given us any other options besides the occasional purely symbolic participatory act of voting. Do you want the puppet on the right or the puppet on the left? I feel like the time has come to project my own inadequacies and dissatisfactions onto the socio-political and scientific schemes. Let my own lack of a voice be heard.